Now, a lot of people seem to not like this vehicle. However, in my time playing it, I've not really found that much to dislike about it. For all intents and purposes, this is an M103 just with a 360 alpha damage gun. Now, yes, the gun handling is slightly worse, however, I wouldn't call it horrific. This actually has the exact same gun handling as an E100, and while I was playing that tank, it didn't really feel that bad to play it without stab. And with that being said, you could just run stab, and then the gun handling is absolutely fine. So if we go into Tank GG, and I've compared Rambo to the M103 and the E77. Now, the reason why the E77 is there is because I feel it is the closest competitor for a tier 9 premium heavy tank. Because in my eyes, the other tanks, such as the Tiger Mouse, that doesn't have the speed to be an all-purpose tank. The DPM on the Chieftain prototype is horrific. The E77's DPM isn't good, but somehow the Chieftain's DPM is even worse. And the 752, well, the 752 is awful. It might genuinely be, in my opinion, the worst tier 9 tank out of all of them, because the gun is absolutely useless. And I don't care. All you 752 lovers out there can cry about it. I hate that gun. And then, I mean, you have the SDR-VK and also the 114, but who in their right mind is going to play those tanks? At least over like an E77 or a Tiger Mouse or something like that. So I think that these three are a good comparison to throw between. And we're starting off with the DPM. Now, obviously, this tank, the Rambo, has 360 alpha. So it makes up for DPM, or at least it should do, and it does. You get 2,700 base DPM, which is very, very nice. However, going back to the alpha damage, yeah, you can sometimes feel it. And I'm not going to lie to you, the sweet spot here is actually the M103 with the 400 alpha and just a little bit less DPM. Because that 400 alpha just makes up for so much. Like when you're hitting for 360 and you low roll and you go down to like 320 or something like that, it feels very, very lackluster. 258 standard penetration, which is APCR. However, the M103 gets 258 with AP. And also the premium rounds on this vehicle are 320 heat. Now the M103 gets 340 heat, which is just flat out better. However, 320 heat I feel is better for the game because you can't just brute force your way through lots and lots of vehicles. 320 is pretty much the sweet spot between being still somewhat having to aim your shot and then being able to pen most of the time if you do aim well. Whereas with 340 heat, you really don't care too much as long as it's a flat surface. However, the E77 has 246 standard pen, which is AP, but then the premium round is 311 APCR. So it's definitely losing in that regard. 320 heat will always be better than 311 APCR unless you're shooting through tracks, in which case then it can get a little bit ropey regarding actually going through and doing damage. Now, the really interesting thing is that this is a 110 caliber. I don't even think I've seen a 110 caliber gun. I probably have. There's probably a tank with one, but 110 is quite an obscure caliber to give a gun. Especially when it's 360 alpha, like the STB1 has a 105 with 360, and then this has a 110 with 360. But with the M103 having a 120 caliber gun, and then the E77 having a 128, the E77 is the only one that would reliably go through an STRV 1030 or 103B at range, because that is the only one that can actually overmatch it. The other two are going to have to wait to either hit the cupola or if they go into a side profile. Shell velocity. Rambo wins. Much higher shell velocity, but that is due to APCR. Usually they go faster than AP. If we do go ahead and go for the heat rounds here, as you can see, and then we'll even put on the APCR round of this. Yes, 1050, so it drops down, but it's still slightly slower than E103's heat round as well, which is kind of interesting considering bigger caliber as well. But it's not as fast as the E77's APCR rounds, which are 1200 nearly. Although, interestingly enough, it's still not as fast as the standard rounds of the Rambo. This also has the highest potential damage as well, at nearly 20,000. It does carry quite a few shells, although you will be firing faster overall as well. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because this is the stage where a lot of people have said that this tank is absolutely awful and I don't want it, this, that, or the other. Now, with the M103, the moving, the tank traverse, and turret traverse are all more than good enough to just go without stab. You can go HB Turbo Rammer, you can go HB Rammer Vents if you want to, it doesn't matter. However you feel like playing the tank, you can basically play with it. The E77 requires stab regardless of what you do, because that is horrific for the, especially for the turret traverse. That is really getting quite bad, and then 0.24 for the rest of it doesn't help. But with this, because the turret traverse isn't super high, 0.1, it's more than fine for when you are in those moments, and you don't really need stab, because you're not going to be moving the tank as much. Most of the time you're going to be in situations where you're side scraping, moving very slowly, just getting the shot out, going back in, not really even moving your turret that much either. So stab, for me, doesn't really make too much sense on this tank, especially considering that, as you'll see in the gameplay as well, it doesn't seem to be that big of a bloom. Like, yes, if you're on full move, like full speed, and you're turning the turret, it's going to bloom. But most of the time, you're not doing that. Not to mention, you're not really fast enough to really keep doing that either. And also, the dispersion is not too bad at 0.36, and the aim time is 2 seconds, or 2.1 seconds. So, I didn't find the gun to be that bad, and you'll see in the gameplay as well. And all three vehicles have exactly the same gun elevation and depression, 8 degrees of gun depression and 15 degrees of gun elevation. Now, speaking about the mobility, this goes at 34 kilometers an hour, exactly the same as the M103. You have slightly less engine power than the M103. And also, if someone could tell me what this means, it says that this tank uses different hidden stats that override the normal values. I don't know what that means and why it's suddenly more, but if someone can tell me, let me know. Because they're completely stock. This is all just effective values at 100% crew. But the train distances are exactly the same as the M103, and pretty much the entire mobility is exactly the same as the M103. You can pick the right-hand field mod for the first one, so you get your more track health, because you do have 34 on hard and medium, and then soft is down to 25. So overall, mobility is fine on this vehicle, but you're never going to reach like the top speed of the E77 unless you put a turbo on it or something like that, but then you can put a turbo on the E77 as well. But also then you need to consider the power to weight, which is 16.3, which means that you will get up to top speed quite fast. You actually have slightly more than the M103 does, and quite a bit more than the E77 does. However, it will overtake you eventually. So off the line, it's the fastest. But over time, the E77 will just go past you. Now, moving on to the armor, you will see that the M103 and the Rambo are exactly the same. And I really do mean exactly the same. Like, this is the Rambo, this is the M103. The only thing different is the gun. And apparently, the M103 is a little bit further back, but I can't really do anything about that. And this is against a Phase 1 firing with its standard rounds at 258 AP. Now, comparing it to the E77, you'll see that the upper plate is, yes, definitely worse off than the M103's. Now, the problem with this is that obviously the M103 then has this turret ring that you can easily pen as well. So you always need to take that into consideration. The cupola, yes, it is quite big, but if it is using all the gun depression as well, that then soon quickly disappears. You can still pen it up here and also in the gun directly at certain points. As you can see, it is not an easy thing to do, but there are certain points that are only 250 millimeters thick. But then you compare it to the E77, obviously the upper plate is worse. However, full gun depression, let's have a little look. That upper plate then becomes an auto ricochet, and this is quite difficult to deal with. However, you can always pen the cupola on the E77, something that is not the case with this tank. So in a hold down environment, probably the E77 is better off because it's a smaller target as well. And not to mention that, yes, even though this cupola is always visible, it's quite slim to hit. But then the same thing could be said that these are quite a slim thing to hit, especially in the mantlet as well. So now that we've had a little bit of a look at the stats, I want to show you my first game that I played in this tank. And I came into it under the impression that it wasn't that great. Because most people were saying how this is just a horrible vehicle and I don't know why you would spend money on it. However, if you can get it for 3,500 gold, it's 100% worth it. And I would argue that up to around about 10,000 gold is probably absolutely fine considering this is a tier 9 premium. There are some heavy tanks at tier 8 that go for 10,000 gold, and fair enough, the tier 9s do not earn as much as the tier 8 premiums, but you do earn bonds from them, and for some people, that is well worth it. I like the torch. Wait, if I enable the effects... torch now hasn't even... Look at that. It's got like smoke and stuff on it. Whoa. I can't remember if this can side scrape. You can hear it crackling. I thought it was my my sound just like dying. Full on torpedo. It doesn't get the 340 heat that the actual M103 gets. Does this own credits as well? So yeah, it is a premium. And bonds. This just seems to be such a massive cluster here. Oh, he had fun. Oh, I love Type 4 heavies, man. What a lovely player. So nice of him to just gift me that, you know? That was a bad shot.
We didn't penetrate their armor. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Gun doesn't feel too bad with stab, I won't lie. Not too bad at all with stab. The heat round's nice.
They're knocked out. Penetration. They killed our driver.
That was bad. What's the shell velocity? I'm not gonna lie, like, the ammunition choice is really nice. The gun doesn't feel awful. But it would have been nice to have 340 heat, but honestly, 320 heat is actually a lot nicer, or a lot better for the balance of the game. What's that, HE round? Oh, only 53 for the HE. Okay, so not good HE, but... I mean, some shots go questionable places.
Enemy armor is damaged. Penetration. Enemy armor is hit. Enemy armor is damaged.
That's 6.4. I don't know, like... The gun is okay. It's definitely not a god tier gun, but it's okay. It's not a bad first game, really, is it? Like, this thing against some E100s are actually going to be a little bit of a problem. quite a big problem, actually. So, yeah. I do like all the bullet casings that's scattered around the place as well. I'm not gonna lie, I said this. I think that this is one of the best looking style. Like, it's really nice, actually. Please don't have anyone in the corner. Thank you. And now we need to absolutely unload our wallets for the heat rounds.
We didn't even scratch them. Enemy armor is damaged. We didn't penetrate their armor. One of our tracks is damaged. Penetration.
I think that was the E100 that just fired.
Enemy armor is hit. Enemy armor is damaged. Enemy armor is damaged. Penetration.
That's annoying.
Enemy armor is hit.
Chill.
Enemy is hit.
See, that is where the normal M103 would have been so much nicer to play.
We're immobilized. Enemy armor is destroyed. Keep going. Penetration. One of our tracks is damaged.
No artillery, at least I'm safe from that. I'm worried about to the left though. T-57? Where is friend going?
Enemy is hit.
Friend is... Okay.
Penetration. Enemy armor is hit. Ready to fire. Let's find another target. Enemy is hit.
Oh, I bounced it, man.
Their armor.
Huh?
Didn't even scratch them.
Okay, well, rip. I don't know how that bounced. I don't know where the shell went. Ugh. I should have won that. I don't think I'm winning against the E100, but... Yeah, even against tier 10s, like... As long as you pick and choose your engagements and you spam heat, you'll be fine. I don't know. I don't see the reason why this tank's getting so much hate, actually, at the moment. The gun is actually nice. It lacks alpha, but it makes up for in DPM. The armor is good. Like, the M103's armor was already good, so... No, top on damage in tier 10 as well. Like, so what do I actually think about the Rambo tank? Well, I came into it with the impression that the gun was going to be absolutely horrific and I wasn't going to be able to do anything. The gun was just going to be derpy. And I had none of that, really. The gun actually treated me quite well and I actually enjoyed the gun. If you don't enjoy the gun, whack a stab on it and it's probably absolutely fine. You know, not everybody is going to be able to deal with a slightly worse bloom. And that's absolutely fine, but just put a stab on it, go HB rammer stab. I mean, that's what I was using in the first game, and it worked absolutely fine. So for me personally, I really actually quite like this vehicle. I think the gun is very, very nice. Yes, it's quite annoying with the 360 alpha. It would have been nicer to have a 400 or a 390 alpha. However, I understand why they did it, because they don't want to make it just a carbon copy of the M103. I know a lot of people were saying that the tank is not worth it. There's no point doing the battle pass and so on and so forth. And yes, there is a lot of events going on right now. And I very much agree with that sentiment. But if you can pick it up for 3,500 gold, pretty much any tank that's tier 7 or above for that price is well worth it. And again, as I said at the start, I'd probably pay up to around about 10,000 gold for this. So for me, this is probably my new favorite Tier 9 Premium Heavy. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll see you all later.